and welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Brittany Ramsey. Residents in the Greenstone area are mourning after a fatal fire claimed the life of a man in Nakina. Volunteer fire crews in Greenstone OPP received a call about the blaze on Highland Crescent at around 1 o'clock Monday morning. The house was completely destroyed, and an OPP spokesperson says a male occupant was unaccounted for. Family, friends, and neighbors say they are mourning the loss of Nakina resident J.P. Mercier. A GoFundMe page has been launched for Mercier's spouse. Fire marshals, officials, fire crews, and OPP were on scene this week working to recover the body. This is the second fatal fire in the Greenstone area within a month. A fire in Geraldton claimed the life of a 2-year-old child in March. Mayor Reynold Beaulieu says the fire department is looking at performing a fire safety blitz in the community and is asking its residents to help out.
This could save lives, and if a fireman comes knocking on your door asking you if you have a fire detector, please be receptive. They can even enter your home and make sure that yours is functioning if you have to. If you even want to ask them to do it, because I mean, hey, I understand it's something sometimes that we kind of put aside, but I'll tell you, with the families that have lived what they've lived in Greenstone in the last 3 weeks, as you stated, that is devastating.
There is no word yet on a potential cause of the fire. The Northwestern Health Unit announced its 7th COVID-related death on Friday. There was still one area resident in hospital due to virus complications in the wake of 12 new cases across its catchment area that were reported Friday. 2 of the new cases come from Kenora, 1 is from the Rainy River area, and 9 are from Sioux Lookout. Of Friday's 50 active cases, Sioux Lookout accounts for 30 of them, and 15 were reported over a 2-day span on Thursday and Friday. Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kit Young-Hoon, says the health unit is still determining where the sudden rise originated from.
Case and contact investigation would have been initiated. Some of it is still ongoing. And of course, people will be monitored, and we'd be looking for linkages and a better sense of if there was a specific situation that could have led to this increase. At this point, it's a bit too early to say exactly what's going on, but I know we are monitoring the situation closely. In Sioux Lookout, we are also trying to make sure supports are in place for cases and contacts so they are able to self-isolate.
On the vaccine front, the NWHU is administering about 3,000 vaccines weekly throughout its region. As of Friday, 14,000 total doses have been administered in the catchment area, and Dr. Young-Hoon is planning to open more vaccination clinics as more supply becomes available. A province-wide stay-at-home order took effect Thursday, and Thunder Bay's top doctor says she supports it. The move comes as active case counts continue to decline in the Thunder Bay district, but Dr. Janet DeMille hopes a stricter lockdown will be able to limit a local third wave. Avery McRae reports.
For all but 2 weeks in 2021, the Thunder Bay District has been in lockdown, and Wednesday's announcement of a province-wide stay-at-home order for the next few weeks leaves locals wondering when restrictions will finally be lifted. But the health unit's top doctor sees the announcement as a positive thing. As cases continue to drop in the Thunder Bay District in recent weeks, Dr. Janet DeMille is hopeful once the order ends, the city will return to a new normal by the summer.
No, cases can rise very quickly, and this lockdown or this stronger shutdown and a stay-at-home order could potentially really prevent our cases going up like that again, and that can have really big benefits for us.
Wednesday's stay-at-home announcement comes as the Thunder Bay District Health Unit reports 15 new cases, 6 of which come from the Thunder Bay area. The health unit also announced 1 case with a variant of concern believed to be the UK variant. The total number of active cases dropped by 1 to 148, and even with active cases dropping, Dr. DeMille notes this is not the time to relax restrictions.
We know that what happens in the rest of the province does impact us, and the rest of the country can impact us. And when I see what's happening in the Toronto area or other areas of the country, I know it's just sort of a matter of time before that we could experience that here. And we saw that with the first wave, and we saw that with the second wave.
The medical officer of health also provided the latest on the district's vaccination efforts. The health unit receives 3,000 to 4,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine each week and around 1,000 doses of the Moderna shot every 2 weeks. The district has also received a couple thousand doses of AstraZeneca between local pharmacies and primary care, all while the vaccine rollout in the city is well underway.
We were, around 6,000 or, anywhere between 5,000 and 6,500 per week is what we've been doing in the last couple. I think we're anticipating around 6,000 doses being administered this week.
The health unit is now also accepting appointments for anyone aged 60 or older to receive their first dose. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Marathon Town Council is calling on the province to provide an urgent delivery of COVID vaccines. The beleaguered community has experienced multiple outbreaks and has had 3 virus-related deaths in the past 2 weeks. Adam Riley reports.
It's not about jumping the line. It's not about getting our community vaccinated over somebody else. It's about the priorities. Marathon needs those vaccines in our arms so we can protect our hospital and protect our community.
That's the position Marathon Mayor Rick Dumas is holding following the unanimous passing of a resolution by Council Monday that is urgently requesting a delivery of 2,200 COVID-19 vaccine doses for a single mass vaccination clinic for eligible adults in Marathon. The resolution is supported by both the North of Superior Healthcare Group, which runs the Wilson Memorial Hospital, and the Marathon Family Health Team. Dumas stresses the situation in Marathon is tenuous at best, with a community of 3,300 experiencing multiple cases, plus an ongoing outbreak at Wilson Memorial.
The concern of our hospital being overwhelmed with COVID patients, and there's not availability for the regular day-to-day health issues and health needs in our community. That is our concern.
The resolution is addressed to both levels of government and the district's medical officer of health, Dr. Janet DeMille. DeMille, according to Dumas, supports the idea in principle, but is not willing to divert vaccines from her allocated supply from the province. The request comes following the announcement of a 3rd death due to COVID-19 in Marathon. As of Monday, there are 14 active cases in the community. Dumas says a similar idea of having municipalities run mass vaccination clinics is something that has been run successfully in BC, and he believes Marathon has not only the capacity but the experience to pull it off.
Let us deal with the vaccinations in our community. And I use the example of our First Nations communities. They felt they were high priorities because of the remoteness, the rural, remote communities. We are the same situation. So we're saying to the government, we're rural and remote. We want to mass vaccinate our community.
Dumas is optimistic that the province will acknowledge the resolution and hopeful they will honor the request. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Dr. Janet DeMille released her response to Marathon's request to be provided with vaccines for its remaining 2,200 eligible adults. As mentioned, Mayor Rick Dumas says Marathon receives 150 vaccine doses a week from the district health unit, which he calls unacceptable. On Wednesday, the Marathon Family Health Team reported 3 new cases, bringing the active total to 7 in the small community, and there have been 3 virus-related deaths in the past 2 weeks. Dumas wants to have Marathon fully vaccinated in 4 weeks' time. DeMille says she appreciates the mayor's concern for his town, but notes the health unit only has a limited supply.
I do understand and have always felt the sort of risk that the small rural municipalities have been experiencing in this pandemic. The challenge, though, remains, vaccine supply to be able to do that and to be able to continue to distribute across the region and to other municipalities as well. That remains sort of the limiting factor of what we are able to do.
As of Thursday, over 550 people in Marathon have received their first dose of the vaccine and 50 have received their second. Greenstone OPP are investigating a sudden death near Long Lac on the Long Lake 58 First Nation. It occurred on Good Friday. Police and EMS responded to a report of an unresponsive person at a residence, and the 26-year-old was later pronounced dead on scene. Specialized OPP units are working alongside the Chief Coroner's Office as part of the investigation, with a post-mortem scheduled for this coming week. And twinning of a section of highway from the Manitoba border towards Kenora will be getting underway soon. Leadership from 4 First Nations support the project. They're prepared to allow the province guided entry into their territory to build the first 6.5 kilometers. Transportation Minister Caroline Mulroney, along with Energy, Northern Development and Mines Minister Greg Rickford, signed a memorandum of understanding at a ceremony in one of the communities over a year ago. The project is expected to have an economic impact of $77 million and the equivalent of more than 300 full-time jobs. Before construction can begin, the First Nation say they require the province to participate in a ceremony later this month. The Canada-U.S. border has been closed now to non-essential travel for over a year, and with border businesses struggling and some families separated, there are growing calls to find a solution to reopen cross-border travel. MP Marcus Pawlowski took part in a virtual roundtable Tuesday in International Falls, Minnesota, regarding the potential reopening of the border. Minnesota Congressman Pete Stauber and Congresswoman Michelle Fishback organized the meeting, which also featured reps from U.S. communities and businesses. During the discussion, Pawlowski spoke about the economic devastation the border closure has caused and also gave his opinion on what it would take for the border to potentially reopen
I think our
to essential
government
travel.
is, in my estimation, being a little overly conservative in how fast we think we can vaccinate people. But I'm thinking, and this is my personal opinion, I'm thinking by June or July, we're going to have a considerable portion of our population vaccinated. That in my thinking, again, this is just me, that when Americans can show proof of vaccination and we have a good deal of our population and all the vulnerable ones vaccinated, that then I think we're probably going to be in a pretty good position.
Our general business is down over 90%. The gas station is closed. The duty-free store is closed. Like Bobby said, with the casino and the reservation, we need Canadian travel. We need it. We need the commerce back and forth.
The Canadian government says the border will remain closed until at least April 21st. Kenora MP Eric Malello is requesting the federal government deploy the RCMP to Pikangikum First Nation to allow 24-hour nursing service to resume. Last month, the OPP were expelled from the community by a band council resolution due to allegations of misconduct by officers. That caused Indigenous Services Canada to remove nurses from the community until police presence is returned. Malello says he's been in contact with community leadership who are open to the presence of the RCMP in their community. The decision to delay Gull Bay First Nations 2020 election has now reached the federal courts. The First Nation was supposed to choose a new chief and council in November, but the election was pushed back by 6 months twice. Now an Alberta Indigenous advocacy group is lobbying on behalf of Gull Bay members who oppose an extra year of their current council. Chief Wilfred King says everything they've done to this point is with COVID safety in mind and says they followed federal regulations. The advocacy group says while the proper channels may have been followed, they don't believe Ottawa should have been able to make that ruling. They also believe any extension should have come with a semi-formal consultation of the band's 1,400 members. King says they didn't offer a large-scale consultation, but heard the majority want the election to take place when it's safe.
It's the opposition that really wants to, get back in council seats and that sort of thing. So those are the ones that are pushing for the election. My gauge of the community is that people were okay with the postponement. Their concern, much was our concern, was the safety of the members.
Consultation can take place in many ways. It can be done through Zoom, through technology. There is a Indigenous electoral company called One Feather who has been conducting band elections throughout the pandemic.
On April 1st, the federal court issued a ruling which found that Section 4 of the federal government's new regulations related to custom election codes was invalid. Ottawa has since decided to appeal that ruling. Louis says they're disappointed by the additional delay this will cause. And when we come back, we'll get a closer look at how the pandemic has affected ambulance calls. Recent data from the Kenora District Services Board shows the pandemic has increased the demand for ambulance services. Simultaneously, the same data shows a positive change when proper supports adequately address the social needs of a community. Adam Riley has details.
Between the year 2019 and 2020, ambulance calls in the Kenora District Services Board catchment area rose by less than 1%, or 500 calls overall, which according to KDSB CAO Henry Wall is sustainable. However, looking closer at certain communities, he says that is where you can find the strains on the system. He notes in the largest centres like Dryden and Kenora, call volumes increased by 4% and 5% respectively. But in many of the remote communities, double-digit increases were seen, the highest being Pickle Lake with a 22% increase. He says that can be attributed to the global pandemic.
With the lockdown and so forth, that it's people may not be accessing proactive medical treatment, and so are calling 911 when they're really sick, and so they're waiting until they're really sick.
Meanwhile, in the nearby community of Sioux Lookout, there was a 13% decrease in the number of calls for emergency care. Wall says the KDSB has invested in housing and prevention supports in that area, and these numbers hold merit to addressing call volumes for the district.
It seems to be a very effective ER diversion strategy, but also we're putting resources or investing resources how they should be, not just lights and sirens. So we think we're onto something here, and that this needs to be our focus in reducing our call volume and stabilizing our call volume moving forward.
The new data also comes as construction begins to kick off on a new ambulance base in Dryden, which is seen as a hub for the district as the community is near equidistant to other communities. The base will also allow the KDSB to no longer need to lease space for storage.
We have equipment and vehicles that we are storing across the community, and so we're hoping to bring all that in-house. And also just from with respect to being able to bring our vehicles out of the elements, they shouldn't be sitting outside. They're very expensive, and so it's one way to protect their value.
The dollar amount for the base has not been released. However, work is expected to be completed by mid-December. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Kenora area residents now have a chance to access spinal surgery closer to home thanks to a new partnership between the Lake of the Woods District Hospital and the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center. Thunder Bay Regional President Rhonda Crocker-Ellicott says the pandemic has made traveling for surgery more difficult for patients, highlighting the need for a standardized level of care right across the region. David Puskas is an orthopedic surgeon with the Health Sciences Center. He is one of two surgeons making the trip to Kenora to perform spinal surgeries. Puskas says the expansion is a big boost for Northwestern Ontario, but also beneficial for Thunder Bay residents.
And so, yes, it is care close to home, but if we were just dealing with local patients, we probably would not have enough volume, again, to keep the staff really excellent. And so, in general, whether it's in Lake of the Woods or whether it's at Riverside or whether it's in Dryden Regional, a great percentage of those patients are actually from Thunder Bay and are happy to be there because those facilities provide a really quite boutique surgical experience.
The program began in February, and about 20 patients have already undergone orthopedic procedures at the Kenora Hospital. OPP and Marathon have arrested a 27-year-old local man on several charges connected to sexual interference, luring, and possession of child pornography. On March 29th, officers received a report of possible inappropriate relations between Alexander Morgan and a youth. Morgan was held for video bail on March 30th and later released on conditions. He's set to appear in Thunder Bay Court on May 14th. 2 of 3 inmates set to stand trial this week for their involvement in a violent hostage-taking at the Kenora District Jail back in 2018 have instead pled guilty. Adam Riley has details.
The incident occurred on September 14, 2018, when Corrections Officer John Santoris was overpowered, restrained, and beaten by 7 inmates for several hours at Kenora's District Jail, most of which was caught on security cameras. Since the incident, Santoris has not been able to return to work in his capacity as a corrections officer, and many COs at the facility have retired early as a result of that day. This week, Travis Polkinghorn, Patrick Kinate, and Ryan Nickel entered guilty pleas for their involvement. 4 co-accused each received various sentences for their roles in the incident last year. Assistant Crown Attorney Peter Keane described Polkinghorne as the primary communicator during the incident, and details including Knate's use of a weapon and prior conviction were read aloud in court. Polkinghorne's lawyer says his clients faced barriers accessing mental health and dental care while incarcerated, and that the hostage-taking was a result of a beef the prisoners had with the ministry and the underfunding of jails. Meanwhile, the Crown did accept some of that argument, but counter-argued that the demands made by the hostage-takers for drugs rather than a change in circumstances stated otherwise. Polkinghorne was given a sentence of 6 years behind bars, Nickel a conditional sentence of 6 months plus 87 days of pre-sentence custody on one count. Meanwhile, Knate is set to return for sentencing next month, and Crown Counsel intend to commence a dangerous offender application for him. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, upgrades on Terrace Bay's waterfront are near completion. It's a project that's been years in development, but Terrace Bay's waterfront pavilion will soon be complete. Construction started in spring of 2020 and is now near completion. It will feature accessible washrooms and a boardroom on one side, offices on the other, and an open-air pavilion in the middle. Community Development Supervisor Dean Main is happy to see the $3.2 million project nearing completion. He says the attached boardwalk will enhance the entire waterfront and will provide the many tourists with a perfect spot to look out onto Lake Superior.
We should be complete by the end of May or early June is what we're looking at right now. There's some seasonal work that has to be done in warmer temperatures, and the boardwalk is exciting because you see lots of people walking the boardwalk, and older adults that have a difficulty in walking in the sand now have an opportunity to enjoy this beach.
Maine envisions more uses for the waterfront as well, including future concerts and weddings. Scribers Town Council is back to full strength following the selection of a new councillor last week. It came after a shakeup on council following the sudden death of Mayor Dave Hamilton in February. Kevin Mullins was then promoted from councillor to mayor. Last week, council selected Douglas Sales, who had previously served on council from 2014 to 2018. Mullins says the decision wasn't easy to make. They received 6 applications from 6 qualified candidates, but they felt Sale was the best fit for the open position.
it was a hard decision, but in the end, we went with Doug because there's 3 of us here right now, including myself. We're first termers, and so we just went with the experience to fill the last year and 10 months, I guess it is.
Now, Mullins hopes the other candidates will apply for other committees within the community. That's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.